Good evening and welcome to the 4th annual performance of I Am Me First. So thank you. I am Barb Turino. I am the founder of I Am Me, and I am the director of the program. And well, we turned the lights off, but how many of you, I think I can see you, how many of you have seen one of our I Am Me's in the last 4 years? Oh, okay, thank you. They like us, they really like us. And the rest of you who are new, you're in for a treat. We have 14 very brave, talented people up here to perform for you. Tell you a little bit about the process. When these people volunteered to be part of this, they agreed to take a workshop. And the workshop was 3 weeks, about 7 hours. They wrote the story. They read it to their classmates. They got really good feedback from people. They rewrote it and rewrote it. Some of them maybe did 5 drafts. Others maybe did 2. And then they got a little bit of coaching and some more feedback from my wonderful assistant director, if you'd stand up, Terry Bromfield. I don't know what I would have done without her. She was a great help. So Terry and myself coached them a little bit on some performance skills, and they worked so hard to perfect what you're going to see here tonight. They dug deep and bared their souls and really tapped into their vulnerability. And so you're going to see real people telling their real stories tonight. So thank you very much for being here. Enjoy the show. And by the way, afterwards, the cast and I will be milling around. If you have any questions, if you're interested in joining us or have any questions about the process, please feel free to come and talk to us. Enjoy.
Who am I? How did I get my values, my moral compass, my traditions? Well, I got them from my parents. And where did they get them from? Their parents. Well, my son had thoughts along these lines, and we had some discussions when he was 13. So we decided that we would take a trip to my maternal grandfather's birthplace, Panamunike, Lithuania. Population 250 then, 250 now. So through the 1700s to maybe the early 1900s, it was a very active Jewish settlement of flax farmers and merchants. We arrived in Vilnius, Lithuania, a bustling city, and we got our interpreter. From there, we went north to Rokiškis, and from there, further north yet, to the village of Panamunike. Why, we walked every street in Panamunike, all 3 of them, every street, and I could see all these old houses. And I thought, my goodness, one of these houses was my grandfather's. It was very moving. The other thing is, as we walked, my son and I realized we could hear the crunch of the gravel. Why, this must be what my grandfather heard when he walked down that very same street. Well, we decided to scoop up some of that gravel, and we brought it home to America. When we passed a little path, it was at the end of the street, and it went down to the train station, to a small little 6x6 kind of ramshackle building. And I realized this was the train station that he used to go to Riga to then catch the boat to go to a far-off land. Why, I could just feel his presence as I stood in front of that building. I could see him with his suitcase in one hand and his arm around the family silver samovar. A samovar is a beautiful urn that heats water with a coal pipe. And it was really known as the heart of the home because you used that hot water to serve tea to family and friends when they came over. But not only did he bring this beautiful samovar, which I still have, he also brought with him his values, his heritage, and he passed them on to my mother, who then passed them on to me. My grandfather was a very religious man, and his life was based on hundreds, if not thousands, of years of tradition. Well, when he reached England and was waiting to board the ship to come to America, he had pink eye, and he was refused. He didn't know any English. He was only 13, and he was pretty confused and hungry. He was so hungry that he actually stole an apple off a cart. And he took one big bite into that apple, and it splattered all over his face. It was a tomato. He'd never seen a tomato before. But to this day, he insisted that that was God punishing him for stealing. So now every time a tomato spurts into my mouth, I have a little chuckle because I think about that story. Well, he finally made it to America. And with him, he brought his love of education. He brought the Friday night candle lighting traditions, conducting the Passover Seders, fasting on Yom Kippur, and many other traditions that I hold dear today. So when I light those Sabbath candles on Friday, or when I go to the samovar and I see it glistening in the light, I feel him. I reflect on my heritage, my values, and my traditions, and now I have passed those on to another generation, my son. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My son married his fiancée in the rustic horse barn on their farm in Parker, Colorado. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the barn as I joyfully walked my son down the aisle, surrounded by his loving family, friends, and gorgeous horses neighing in nearby stalls. I love my daughter-in-law. I am blessed with an amazing 10-year-old grandson who calls me Mirma. Walking my son down the aisle on his wedding day may seem ordinary, but the journey to participating in his ceremony was anything but ordinary. 8 years ago, I faced the most agonizing choice of my life. I filed for divorce after 35 years of marriage. I was scared. I had never lived alone. How will I adjust? Will my adult sons feel that I am divorcing them as well? My son stopped speaking to me for more than 3 years. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced, praying it was them calling me. Their prolonged silence left me heartbroken. Their rejection caused me pain and anger, but I clung to the hope that someday they would understand and return to my life. I immersed myself in self-discovery. I learned to find happiness within, embracing the solitude that had at one time terrified me. As time passed, my pain lessened. On my 65th birthday, my long-awaited dream came true. My son sent me a birthday card with the following handwritten message. Dear Mom, we want to wish you a happy birthday and truly hope you have a nice celebration and year ahead. Without going into too much detail, we understand the pain you went through, and we wish you the best. Now my sons and I cherish warm and loving relationships. We have moved past hurt and anger. Our shared journey has taken us from a place of heartache to one filled with peace, gratitude, and joy. I am living happily ever after, appreciating the new version of myself and the fulfilling life that I have worked so hard to create. Thank you.
It was a cool and crisp Saturday in October 1984 in Timber Hill, later named Alpine Mountain, in Henryville, Pennsylvania. Located within the Pocono Mountains, about a 90-minute drive northwest of New York City. Dad had built a house there in 1967 as a weekend getaway and possible retirement home for him and himself and for Mom. He'd asked me to drive up there with him to check on the house and property, which due to health issues between him and Mom, wasn't being used for the past 5.5 years. When we arrived, the ground was a lush carpet of mostly red, yellow, and orange leaves. As Dad went inside the house, I decided it would be a good idea to rake the leaves away from the perimeter of the house to give the property a more occupied appearance. You see, one weekend in the early years, the house had been broken into and ransacked. I was about 11 or 12 at the time, and the memory of the shattered glass, the large rock used to smash it, along with the feelings of fear and vulnerability and powerlessness, were etched deeply in my consciousness. I dispersed a good deal of the leaves into the surrounding woods, and then decided to burn some of them. I felt driven. It was early afternoon, but sunset would come soon, and we would go back to the city the next day. It was a small fire, but there was a slight breeze. I was aware of the risk, but pushed on until rather quickly some of the ashes began drifting away and landing several feet on a seemingly endless leaf carpet. I picked up the pace, using the rake in my work shoes to extinguish those small flare-ups. Adrenaline began coursing through my body when Dad came outside, holding an old golf club. And he began helping me. Nervous and half-jokingly, I said, "Dad, what are you going to do, yell 4 and expect a fire to dissipate?" I saw a little grin on his face, and that brought me some relief. And I also felt a bit stronger. But then I started saying the serenity prayer repeatedly. I learned it back in January. Moments later, a small voice said, "Call the volunteer fire department." Thankfully, they came within minutes and got things under control quickly. After they left, Dad said to me, "It was good you thought of calling for help." That wasn't a response that I had been used to. after making a mistake or having a lapse in judgment. Early the next morning, around 7 a.m., the phone rang. I ran downstairs. I glanced out the door and saw the car wasn't in the driveway. The voice on the other end was a Pennsylvania state trooper who asked me if Dad had a medical condition because he was seen and pulled over for driving erratically. I explained that Dad had a tumor on his brain and it impeded his coordination. A neighbor drove me to the spot that Dad was waiting for me. And when I got in the car, I immediately said, "Dad, why? What were you thinking?" He looked down at his feet, and that gave me some pause. The words then just spilled out of me. Sorry. I was concerned. I love you and don't want to see you getting hurt. Looking back, I see that my initial response to Dad was exactly what I was used to hearing. Thank God for pauses. On the surface, yeah, both Dad and I exhibited some reckless behavior over that weekend. But a deeper look back revealed a son acting out of old fears and the need for some acceptance, and maybe some prior conditioning. And a father grieving over the loss of independence and acceptance of his powerlessness. Dad passed away the following year. He was 64, I was 28. A shift in our relationship transpired over that weekend, though. I miss him at times and wish we would have had more time to really get to know each other. What a gift this memory is, however. Thank you.
Math. Math changes everything. I am so not what I thought I would be when I grew up. The trajectory of my life just shifted when my math teacher, Mrs. Katz-Goen, wow, the first woman I ever met with 2 last names, told me, and my parents, that I had to go to college. I said, why? I've been working since I was 9 years old, professionally in show business, earning a living, doing my own banking, investing, and more. Fast forward. Many of the boys at the High School of Performing Arts used to cheat off my math test. I knew they were, and I'm sure Mrs. Katz-Cohen did too. A nice, not-so-yet-famous Jewish boy named Isaac Mizrahi from Brooklyn often sat next to me, promising me that he'd design my prom dress if he'd get a B. Well, he got a B+, but he never designed my prom dress. And now he's a famous designer with accountants to do his math for him. Well, math and boys were my major and my minor, if you know what I mean. I'm an actor. I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, and it's in my bloodstream. That's all I know. That's all I wanted to be when I grew up. Fast forward, my dad strongly encouraged me to take a full scholarship to Boston University for the College of Liberal Arts. I unwillingly did. During the first few weeks of college, I cried every Sunday calling my parents, begging them, please, please, I want to come home, and telling them how much I hated class. I was a psychology major. There were over 250 kids in my class. Then, I took the math placement test, and the proctor, Dr. Carol Greenis, told us to raise our hands when we were finished, and I was the first one to do so. She graded my test. I got 100, and she asked me what my major was, and I answered her, psychology, psychology. I couldn't stop crying. I was panting, psychology, and I was gasping for air. And she said she was the assistant dean of mathematics education at the College of Education at Boston University, and that she was teaching ED 100, that class that year, and suggested that I drop Psych 101 and register for her class. There were only 12 students in her class. The year was 1981, and she told me the great need for female mathematics and computer teachers throughout the United States. After the first class, I immediately changed my major, I dropped psych, and I became a K through 12 education major towards my bachelor's and master's degree. Before I knew it, she asked me if I would be an assistant editor on the first mathematics textbook series, K to 12. I was making $21 an hour at age 18 as a freelance editor for McGraw-Hill and Houghton Mifflin. Well, Carol and I worked very closely over the summer, and she shared with me one day that her dream was to be a Broadway actress, singer, and dancer. Well, I told her about my training at the High School Performing Arts, and that I had studied music at Juilliard and Manhattan School of Music, and danced with Baryshnikov ballet at the School of American Ballet. I lived in the music house at Boston University. We had 3 baby grand pianos. So one day, I told her I'd like to play for her. So I played a song, and I told her I wrote it. So from then on, we began to collaborate, writing mathematical musicals that we wrote together. I wrote the music, she wrote the lyrics, and we found ourselves teaching deans and educators from all over the world how to do mathematical musicals as we perform them for the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics. Well, here's how one of the songs went. Math changes everything, how we laugh and how we cry. Math changes everything, how we add and multiply. I wrote that 40 years ago. Well, I proudly became a teacher. I taught math, set up computer labs, and I wrote and directed shows for my students everywhere, eventually leaving teaching and becoming a technical recruiter for the business world, high-level tech positions. 2 years ago, Dr. Carol Green has found me on Facebook, and she sent me a message that she and her husband, Dr. Bob, had moved to San Diego and saw that I had moved to Southern California. I had not spoken to her in over 30 years. So Arnie and I went to have lunch with them, and right there and then, she asked me to join her on a writing project for a brand new PBS television show about math, and to volunteer on a project writing books and workbooks for the Philippines. Wow. Math can and did change everything. Thank you.
I don't think I'm growing older. Actually, I know I'm getting smaller. The only things that grow are the numbers of my age and my waistline. I hate growing older, not because of the numbers or the wrinkles, but because parts of my life are gone. I tend to reminisce sadly about my tennis game and the black diamond runs on the ski slope. Both of those sports are no longer part of me. Old memories are clearer in my mind than the activities of yesterday. I remember and can recite poems I learned as a kid, but I'm slow to memorize a part in a play. How can I learn to embrace the aging process? When I was 65, my daughter said to me, "How is it different to be older?" And I said, "I don't know. I still feel as if I was 35. But at 78, I suddenly realized that I was no longer a middle-aged woman, but an old lady with aches and pains and twinges in the hinges and doctor's visits. Now, years later, I am trying to embrace the changes, learn a lot about the new me who has a finite time to live. I've always been a procrastinator, and I now realize how much time I waste. I'm not afraid of dying, but I would like to know exactly when and where so I could complete some of those nagging plans I've left undone. You know, I think of the lines from Julius Caesar that I had to memorize when I was in high school. Cowards die 1,000 times before their death. The valiant never taste of death but once. Of all the wonders that I yet have heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear death, seeing that it will come when it will come. What I am afraid of is the diminution of that spark of life, the energy to get out of bed in the morning and look forward to an enjoyable day. I'm confused by the signals that come from my body, and I don't know how to interpret them. Who's the boss here, I tell myself, my mind or my body? They seem to work at cross purposes. One says, get up and go, and the other says, well, maybe later. But I'm an optimist. I love living here in the village, and each day truly is an opportunity to stretch mind and body in new ways, if I want to. Retirement means that I can stagger into the kitchen, sit down with that cup of coffee, read my email, and feel the warmth of the coffee reminding me how great it is to be alive. I even have time to talk to myself. I take pleasure in the swing of my arms and the cadence of my steps when I walk. But I miss the thrill of moving down the ski slope and the exhilaration of the speed and coordination. And I really miss the hot mulled wine at the end of the day. There are leaves still falling from trees. At the same time, new buds are forming. The time to read a book or watch TV in the daytime, instead of trying to repair the world, is not a waste. It's just a different adventure. Maybe growing older means that not getting older, but finally just growing up. Thank you.
In 1969, I moved from rural Indiana to New York City, where I knew I'd be a star in a matter of weeks. My first need, though, was for a job to support myself. Through a stroke of great luck, I was hired at Town Hall, a theater concert hall just off Times Square. Believe it or not, I began working with critics from all the major New York newspapers. While I was there, I realized during those first few months that I was gay. I began to make friends in the gay community. As Christmas approached, I went holiday shopping with one. Of course, where did we go? Macy's 34th Street. As we entered the revolving door, I looked to my left, and I saw another friend exiting, going out of the store. Then I noticed a guy who was also on the other side of my door, who I presumed was part of a photo shoot for an advertising campaign for Macy's. I remember thinking to myself, gutter trash. He even wore a textured man's mink coat. We and my friends and I, we were dressed in our pea coats and our work shirts and our torn jeans. We were hippies. Then I noticed a guy, and we walked around and talked to him, and I went back outside, and I just remember that coming out of the revolving door, right beside me, was the man in the mink. I gave him a dirty look, and then he said, "Hi, I'm Ed." I was then introduced to him by both my friends. "That guy is no one I'd ever want to hang out with," I said as we re-entered Macy's. A couple of weeks later, that same friend Norman called and asked me to spend Christmas Eve with him and a group of friends at his apartment down in the village. I said I had no plans and thought to myself, it would be better than sitting at home. So I agreed. Later that week, another friend called and asked me to go to the country over the Christmas weekend. I forgot all about the original party invitation and went blithely off to a wonderful, homey Christmas escape in the country. When I returned to the city, Norman contacted me enraged. He informed me that the party had been specifically planned so I could meet and spend time with Ed. When he calmed down, he invited me for New Year's Eve dinner and to meet Ed. Finally feeling guilty about Christmas Eve faux pas, I said yes, but warned if I was bored, I had other party invitations and I would leave and go elsewhere. The New Year's Eve dinner was okay, and I prepared to leave before midnight. Ed handed me a note. I looked, his phone number was written on it. I immediately left and threw the note in the trash. Weeks later, my phone rang at town hall, and a voice said, "Weren't you ever going to call me?" And I immediately said, "Who is this?" The voice on the other end said, "Ed." Oh, I was so disturbed. And I thought, oh gosh, I really owe this because I had been such a stank with the dinner with Norman. After all, I needed to find an excuse. And I said, "Oh, I'm very busy. I'm busy with my career." And I said with great arrogance, I told him I could only meet him after work Sunday at 10 p.m. I thought that would be the end of it. But to my shock, he said, "Great, I'll meet you at the restaurant." I was trapped. I then figured we would not be compatible dinner companions, and I'd ditch him by 10:30. We met that Sunday, and much to my amazement, he was nothing like I had presumed. He was just a regular guy with a good job. He told me about his family, and he still lived at home, as many New York City kids did until marriage. And he was exceedingly nice and fun. I liked him. We closed the restaurant at 2 a.m. He asked if we could continue our conversation at dinner the following night, and we did. Then, 2 weekends later, I was introduced to his family. I have never met such a lovely family. They were very accepting of me and friendly. No one in the Midwest I had ever met were like these people. I now knew why Ed was such a great guy and began to wonder why he had put up with my original abysmal treatment. But my luck had once again been perfect. Now, folks, if you turn and you look over there at that handsome man, after 48 years, we are still together and married. How many people out there made it 48 years with the same person? In the gay world, 48 hours is considered a long-term relationship. Moral of the story, gay life or straight life, loving and caring, that is all anyone really wants to experience in life.
I want to confess a secret. I am a sentimental keeper, believing that everything that I've accumulated in my lifetime and have chosen to keep tells the story of me. It's as though my mind says it reflects my worth and identity. I went to an estate sale recently where I had started to think about my own longevity. I was really bothered by the personal belongings that were there on display for strangers to buy, like undergarments and family framed photos. Well, I realized it was time for me to discuss it with my own family. Always thinking that my children, my grandchildren, would want some of my things, their answers surprised me. They told me that with exception of a few things, that they would give everything to charity. Well, I felt hurt, but I've always believed it was important to leave a legacy for your family. For me, doing with a little less meant that it would be appreciated after I was gone. You know, it saddens me to think of the times that I've given my grandchildren monetary gifts, and they haven't even evoked much appreciation. Their worlds just seem so materialistic. You know, thank God they have never had to have done without. Well, my son and my daughter's philosophy was not to save anything for them, but to go ahead and use what I have and enjoy it while I still can. So I thought, what am I saving that bone china for? My daughter has her grandmother's. I should just enjoy it. Well, that was many years ago. Now, it isn't practical anymore to use that china because I have too much arthritis. Now in my early 70s, thinking about how many productive years are ahead of me is a reality. Maybe it makes more sense to sell the things that are valuable, that I wouldn't hesitate buying that expensive bottle of perfume that I could enjoy right now. Well, I do find myself needing less and wanting more comfort and not using most of my stuff. So could now be the right time to indulge in the small luxuries that I have chosen to do without, like traveling? You know, if I personally decide who receives my belongings, then it gives me the satisfaction of knowing that someone really appreciated it. Making the choice to give it away or to sell it seems right for me. I am still very emotionally conflicted, but I'm not getting any younger. So these 1970s vintage suede knee-high disco boots that I wore 53 years ago while dancing. Yes, yeah, thank you. I was surprised I got them on. But I wore them dancing when I met my ex-husband. So, the other thing, my collection of figurines and crystal and things that have been handed down to me by family members, best friends, some have passed. My beautiful pieces of jewelry that were made for me by an ex-boyfriend who was a jewelry maker, and so much more. Well, I hope that I can find the energy and the motivation and the emotional strength to part with some of these lifelong keepsakes. There is always pleasure of recollecting what I long for in my mind. But these memories are all alive inside of me. So instead of dwelling on what I'm slowly losing the ability to enjoy, now is the time to make the best of what I still can. Thank you.
Today, I want to share with you a very intimate piece which I wrote over 7 years ago, shortly after my husband had passed away, and which I kept to myself. If I still might get emotional, please forgive me. My grief is a bottomless ocean without borders. Its waves are dark, its waters are deep. I cannot escape it. It carries me farther and farther to the horizon. Will I ever see light there? I have no weight. I have no will. I am a straw. I'm floating, sliding from wave to wave. I cannot resist. I'm moving farther and farther to the horizon. Will I ever see light there? My mind is empty. My soul is dead. My eyes are dry from tears no shed. I am a glass jar. I'm just drifting farther and farther to the horizon. Will I ever see light there? I look at the skies and I ask in them, why? The skies are silent. The stars are faded. They have no answer. They're leading me farther and farther to the horizon. Will I ever see light there? I scream, I cry, I dare, I ask. I know the answer, and yet I don't. I'm dreaming. If only I could and reached the horizon, will I ever see light there? Thank you.
Where does love come from? Love has so many pieces and parts. One of many is my mom. Okay, how should I get started on this piece here? Got a stage, see, costume. Start at the top, my headgear, a hat. I have so many hats. I've got baseball caps, I've got dress hats, I got flat caps. I know, I'll ask my boss, my loving wife, Diane. She will be glad to help. From what I had in mind, I'm sure she will surely be able to figure everything out for me. My best flat cap. Bingo! My Guinness cap from Ireland. There's the cap. As soon as I topped my noggin with it, it brought back such memories of both of us. It was one of our tours of Europe. We flew into London, England, and started our tour on foot and then coach. And then coach, we moved on to see more of England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. But when we started our tour of Dublin, Ireland, the magic happened. In the Guinness brewery with a mug of ale in my hand, drawn from a huge vat, then walking out onto the balcony for a beautiful sunset. What a sight. I wish my mother could have seen this. But it was my lovely love of my life who is with me now, Diane. Seeing the 1,000-year-old buildings mingled with such beautiful scenery. Something tugged at my string hearts. The Irish tunes that my mother would sing to me. This started me thinking about my own heritage. What am I, a Heinz 57? 1/4 Cherokee Indian, English, French, Irish, Scotch, and who knows what else. But I was born a red-blooded American boy. Irish on my mom's side, Dolly. Quite a mixture on my dad's side, Jack. Edith Estelle Perry, my mother. John Joshua Dewey Clark, my father. What a combination. By the way, you should throw some money into the Bank of Ireland, you know, because it's always in Dublin. Oh, thank you, Mom and Dad. And thank all of you. Toor-a-loor-a-loor-a, toor-a-loor-a-lie, toor-a-loor-a-loor-a. That's an Irish lullaby.
I was raised in the Bronx. In my family, my father was the caregiver. Dad cooked, cleaned, and food shopped. My mother didn't get involved in these things. She had some type of personality disorder which was never diagnosed. She was a very difficult person. My dad had told me that I belonged to him and my brother belonged to my mother. I always felt my brother got the short end of the stick. Mom went to a friend's house most evenings, and my brother and father both worked evenings, so I was a latchkey kid. And by the time I was 12, I had to learn how to cook for myself. My signature dish, which I learned from my brother and father, was tater tots, peas, hamburger, and soy sauce cooked in a pot to make a tasty mush.
When my father was home a couple of nights a week, then there was a nice dinner. Even my mother hung around for that. There was salad and burgers, sometimes pancakes for dinner. There was one time my dad made me chicken and a baked sweet potato for lunch. That was a memorable meal. It just tasted so good that for years after that, I remember how it tasted and how pleasurable it was. We ate a lot of ethnic foods. I remember my mother boiling tongue. My father and brother would fight over who got the tip. I only ever ate the heel. A favorite comfort food was Hebrew National hot dog, cooked in a water, and then my dad would put the open can of vegetarian beans in with the hot dog and cook it in the pot together. I asked my dad if he loved me, and he would say, "We're stuck with you, aren't we?" I never once heard either of my parents or my brother say they loved me, but food Dad made me seemed to nurture me and gave me a sense of home. Making meals for me was the way my dad gave me love. I wish our family was more loving emotionally and physically, but they weren't. My brother now tells me frequently that he loves me. There's a saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. For me, my father made his way into my heart by cooking for me. It was the most pleasant part of being part of my family. It made me content to be cared for in this way. When we were younger and my brother still hung out with us, we would go to Clifton, New Jersey for corned beef sandwiches at a Jewish deli. We rarely ate meals together, so trips and times we went to Brooklyn to a Jewish dairy restaurant are a favorite memory. Food was our place where we could feel loved. My brother went on to become a food critic. Incidentally, my brother became Mr. Mom to his daughter and loved cooking for her till she left home. I enjoy eating with others and still make some of the foods I learned to make from my dad. Vegetable patties, like corn fritters and string bean patties. My favorite food was chopped egg salad with Hellmann's mayonnaise on rye. And sometimes they would get the pumpernickel and rye bread mix. That was heaven. My father was in the Army and stationed in Hawaii. While there, he experienced ham sandwiches, and back in New York, he still liked eating ham. One time, he took me to Mary's Diner in the Bronx for ham sandwiches on white bread. I am not a fan of ham. It looks like a slab of bubble gum. My mother kept kosher, and she never knew that my dad hid unclean foods in the bottom of the refrigerator. It was a secret between my dad and me. My brother didn't know about it until after our father died, and I told him. My father died almost 40 years ago. His memory is in the foods I cook and when I food shop. It is where I find love.
I applied to sing study class by accident. Acting seems so attractive to me, but it has been a great challenge. Acting requires lots of creative ideas, quick wit, and imagination. My teacher and my classmates are all very so nice to me. They give me lots of their guidance, support, and help. But my progress was still very slow. I wondered, Everybody's doing so well. Oh, why can't I? Julie Garland's song. Then I joined the Theater Guild Club. This club offers lots of training for the members. By attending those trainings, I am amazed to know that there are so many talented people in this club. Not only do they have extensive knowledge and experience, they are also very passionate. They try all means to make sure we grow. They identify any small, little improvement we make and encourage us again and again. Gradually, I gain some confidence. I started to get epiphanies from the training. I learned many things that I never knew. I learned how to open myself and express freely. I start to know who am I and what I need to do to live my life in a constructive way. Here are my little epiphanies. At the first Barb Turino's training, I got the epiphany when Barbara says, everyone is an actor. We need to get out, think out of the box. I realized that I put myself into a box, that I'm a scientist. Lack of artistic sense, I'm no good at acting. With this thought in my mind, quite often I got a brain freeze during the improv. And I must always remind myself to get out of this box. At another training, I learned to analyze my personalities using the provided tools. I found I'm a harmonizer. As a harmonizer, I tend not to speak out my different opinions to maintain the harmony. But it's just like blowing up a balloon. At the beginning, I may be okay. But the situation repeats again and again, the balloon becomes bigger and bigger. At the end, it explodes. This happened to me many times. Now I know I need to speak out my different opinions or concerns through thorough communication and discussion to resolve the difference or find a better way to reach the harmony. You see, I'm growing. Though still a long way to go. I need to work on my foreign accent, pronunciation, enunciation, and practice more. I'm standing here to share my stories and also express my sincere thanks to my teachers, my classmates, my partners, my scene study partners, and the trainers. You open my eyes. The laugh I get from this large acting family warms my heart. I cannot thank you enough. I like being with you and doing all kind of acting activities with you. Thank you.
My beautiful, enchanting mother had a laugh that started parties, and she carried a concrete, insatiable sadness whose only comfort seemed to be alcohol. When Mother drank, she was gone. I watched her slip into a world that turned the rest of us into shadows and whispers. There I imagined she found her peace, the freedom from dilemmas, and the deliverance from desperation. I believe two things about her drinking herself into such a distance that even holding her face in my hands, I could not see her. I was bad and the reason she drank, and she treasured alcohol more than she could treasure me. I apologized so many times for being me, promising to be a better daughter, less needy, less combative, so that she would not leave me when she sought a way out through alcohol. One evening when she was drunk, falling unconscious onto her bed, I sat on the floor, holding her hand, her slack hand, dangling over the edge, kissing it and saying, "I'll be good, Mommy. I'll be good." I longed for my mother's love. As a child, I would do anything to claim it, sometimes forcing her attention to assure myself of her affection. Once, when I wanted her to cut open an orange for me, she asked for 15 minutes so she could finish reading her book. I went into the kitchen, took out a butcher knife, and bringing it down upon the orange, accidentally split open my thumb. Those 15 minutes became mine. At night, in my bed, I called out to her, insisting she repeat the words, "Night, night, sleepy tight, God bless, sweet dreams, see you in the morning," declaring that if she didn't, I could not sleep. Every night. As often as possible, I sat on her lap, crawled into her bed, kissed her soft face. I was like a dog. And I was endearing. I left her notes to find upon her return from parties that said, "Mommy, come into my room and wake me up so that I can love you." I wrote her poems. I said that one day I would take her to happiness. And I made her laugh. That wonderful, wonderful laugh. When I was 5 years old, I fell and scraped my arm. Mother gently placed her hand on the wound, and I asked, "Mommy, can you feel my pain?" And she replied, "Yes, little lamb, I can feel your pain." In that moment, she belonged to me, and I was hers. That expression of love reassured me in the years to come that I would have it again. There were many moments of tenderness, and always there was her journey to her soothing oblivion that left me in its wake. Into my adolescence, each time I suffered an injury, Mother felt my pain, and that gesture was each and everything to me. At age 15, on an icy December day, I raced for the school bus, slipped, and cut my knee open to the bone. Returning from the hospital, Mother gently placed her hand upon my wound. I asked, "Mommy, can you feel my pain?" And she replied, "No, one person cannot feel another person's pain." There was a thrashing in my chest, and I was unable to speak. For 10 years, I believed Mother could touch my pain. She saw my panic and bewilderment and tried to console me by saying she understood I had pain. She could not feel the pain, but she understood it. I remained desolate. 2 weeks later, on Christmas Day, I unwrapped a present from my mother. It was a small statue of a child with a Band-Aid on a wound. Below the child was written, "When you hurt, I hurt too." And she was mine, and I was hers. Thank you.
Come Fly With Me was the song playing in my head for 2 days before my 80th birthday. December 1st, 2021 was the day. I was determined to check off a major item on my bucket list, skydiving. I asked my friend Tammy if she wanted to join me. She jumped at the chance. A group of my friends started commenting about coming to watch us fly. Come Fly With Me was becoming a reality. When the day arrived, it was perfect, with clear blue sky, 85 degrees, and very little wind. It was meant to be. Some people questioned my decision and could not understand why I wanted to do this. Scary, dangerous, crazy thing. This caused me to reflect on why. Why did I have no fear? What motivated me to approach most of life's challenges in this fearless manner? Upon reflection, I realized it went back to my childhood. My parents instilled in me and my 3 siblings confidence that would last a lifetime. They taught me to live life fearlessly, and this has served me well. When I was a young teenager, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Cancer in those days was pretty much a death sentence. When I expressed my fear to my dad, he calmly and with surety reassured me that Mom would be fine. Happily, he was right, as she was diagnosed early and the surgery went well. Mom went on to live to 85 and never had a recurrence. When I was about 20 years old, my dad's business had a fire. Without fear, he ordered a mobile home that would double as an office. And he was back in business in 1 day. To his colleagues' amazement, that was my dad's way. My family life experiences taught me valuable lessons regarding fear. Do not fear, act. Back to the skydiving. We checked in at Skydive Elsinore, and Tammy and I signed our lives away with all of the disclaimers. Of course, we bought our video and picture package. We had to document this. Several people there were also celebrating birthdays. Would you believe? One woman getting ready to jump was 100 years young. When our turn came, Seth, my tandem partner, harnessed me so that we would be closely attached when the time came to jump. We boarded the plane and flew to 14,000 feet. Seth, with his enthusiastic personality and big smile, helped me to feel confident. Even his cute hat that was turned up in front was a sure sign of fun to come. What a gift. He reminded me of a hippie living free who had found his passion by helping people jump for joy in the sky and land safely, creating a feeling of euphoria, which is hard to describe. There were 20 of us on the plane, jumpers in training, 2 tandems, at least 2 videographers, and of course, the pilot. As we approached 14,000 feet, Seth tightened our harnesses real close, so we were like one. Seth and I were the last two out of the plane, and the videographer was hanging on the door with one hand and his camera attached to his headgear. It was incredible. I will admit that the scary part was that the wind was getting very strong as we prepared to jump. Seth rocked us back and forth for a couple of times, and whoa, we were off. Free falling is amazing, and I had no fear, and my mouth was wide open with excitement and amazement, and air filled my cheeks. All I could think of was, close your mouth, stupid. It never occurred to me to worry about the chute opening. When it did, it began this wonderful, floating, and peaceful soft landing. All I had to remember was to keep my legs straight out. As planned, we would land on our butts. I laid back to breathe, take it all in and enjoy the feeling. I felt great. The event had exceeded my expectations. I had a strong feeling of pride and satisfaction. I had acted without fear or hesitation. Everything happened perfectly. It really did. I once read, whenever you do what you really love, your heart opens and everything changes. You wake up. That's what true adventure really is. I had experienced a true adventure. It was over, and the memory will last forever. I have proof with videos and pictures. The appreciation of our friends being there to share it with us made it even more special. I hoped it would be fun and exhilarating and satisfying. It turned out to be exactly that and more. One of my favorite writers, C.S. Lewis, said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." Thank you.
Turn your face to the moonlight. Let your memory open up if you find there the meaning of what happiness is. Then your new memory all alone.
Look at this, guys. Take it in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, they exceeded my expectations. I'm so, so proud of you guys. We have a couple of people we would like to thank. Crew, come on out. This is our wonderful crew led by our stage manager, Susan Shuey. And you never can do a show without wonderful people in the background to make it happen. Also, we have to thank Joe, hiding there in the booth. We have a saying here at Theater Guild, there's no show without Joe. And it's true. That man spent 2 hours with me trying to figure out how we could project the pictures without using that humongous screen that we have on the stage and have room for our actors. And he always goes above and beyond. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Joe. And again, thank you to Terry, my wonderful assistant manager. Oh.
Of course, we want to thank you because you were so wonderful to all of us. So enjoy.
Thank you.
And now we have another one. There she is. Yeah, I'm going to do that separately.
Working with this group was a gift beyond compare. They were extraordinary to work with. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's take one more group bow. Thank you for coming. We'll be hanging around a little bit. If you want to talk to anybody or get any questions answered, we're going to hang out for a while. As soon as they all get there, they all have their microphones off. Okay, go have fun, guys. Thank you again.